The seconds and minutes that follow a sudden attack can dictate your fate. Picture this. It's an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, and you're scrolling through your phone, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. Suddenly, your screen erupts with breaking news. An unprecedented event is unfolding, and chaos is erupting around you. Sirens pierce the air as people scramble for safety. In the blink of an eye, panic sets in, and every decision you make from that moment on could mean the difference between survival and disaster. Today, we're diving into the 8 critical mistakes you must avoid before an attack on U.S. soil. Each misstep can leave you exposed and vulnerable when the situation turns dire. From spreading unverified information to succumbing to complacency, these pitfalls can have catastrophic consequences at the most critical times. So, grab a pen and paper because you won't want to miss these essential tips that could save your life. Stay tuned as we uncover the strategies to keep you one step ahead when it matters most. Number 8. Don't spread unverified information. I need you to hear this loud and clear. Spreading unverified information in a crisis isn't just irresponsible, it's dangerous. I'm talking directly to the person sitting there, scrolling through social media, ready to share the next thing that pops up on their feed. Sharing false information or rumors can quickly spiral into mass hysteria, and in the chaos, people get hurt, sometimes fatally. Think it's harmless to repost an alert about an active shooter in your neighborhood that hasn't been verified? Imagine what happens if thousands of people see it, panic, and rush to evacuate. You've just created a stampede of fear, with cars racing down streets, colliding, blocking emergency responders, and creating a gridlocked nightmare that makes it harder for people to get to actual safety. The consequences can be even worse. Say you spread a rumor that a safe evacuation route is blocked when, in reality, it's open. People will reroute away from the safe path, inadvertently steering themselves into greater danger. Misinformation can turn a tense situation into a deadly one in seconds. We've seen this play out before, and the historical consequences serve as a dire warning. During the 9/11 attacks, as the first plane struck, misinformation spread nearly as fast as the actual news. False reports claimed other cities were also under attack, triggering mass panic. Some people fled from workplaces, congesting roads or even crowding onto bridges, which could have been fatal choke points had the rumors been true. In the aftermath, there were even rumors of bomb threats and military actions that never actually happened. If social media had existed back then, the chaos would have been amplified beyond what we can imagine today. Consider the COVID-19 pandemic. False claims about masks, vaccines, cures, and basic protocols were shared millions of times online. People followed bogus health tips, risking their well-being, and in some cases, their lives. Misinformation even led to shortages of essentials like toilet paper, food, and household supplies as panic buying spread. People stormed stores, wiping shelves clean and leaving those who genuinely needed supplies empty-handed. Imagine that kind of hysteria in a national security crisis, when resources like food, water, and fuel could become dangerously scarce. Here's a chilling scenario to think about. Imagine a coordinated attack unfolds, and misinformation about the location of the danger spreads online. People will flee to what they believe are safe zones, but those areas might actually be the next targets. This kind of tactic, called disinformation warfare, is designed to mislead people, amplifying fear to create maximum chaos. When you share unverified information, you're unknowingly playing right into this tactic, adding to the noise and confusion that can lead people astray. You may think, it's just one post. What harm could it do? But the power of social media lies in its ability to make information go viral in seconds, especially when fear and urgency are involved. People look to each other for guidance during a crisis, and your post could spark a chain reaction that grows out of control. It's essential to pause before you share anything. Check if the information is verified by credible sources. Don't trust rumors, or even close friends of friends, unless reliable news outlets have confirmed it. In a crisis, controlling your mental state is as crucial as ensuring physical safety. Spreading unverified information doesn't just put others at risk, it endangers you as well. When people panic, they're more likely to believe unverified news, leading them to make rash, sometimes dangerous decisions. Words carry weight, and in a crisis, one piece of misinformation can cause irreversible damage. So, verify before you share. Remember, every share and tweet has a ripple effect, especially in tense situations where people are desperate for guidance. Number 7, don't panic, but don't be complacent either. Panic and complacency are two sides of the same deadly coin. Either one can endanger you in a crisis. You might think that keeping calm is the opposite of panic, but in reality, complacency can be just as dangerous. It's that little voice that says, "This will all blow over," or "I've survived worse." That voice is setting you up for failure when things start unraveling, and it's the last thing you should be listening to. Imagine this. Sirens are blaring, chaos is spreading, and adrenaline is pumping through your veins. If you give in to panic, you're paralyzed. You might freeze, make irrational choices, or worse, follow the crowd without thinking. People who panic often make dangerous decisions, like running into stampeding crowds, jumping into gridlocked streets, or rushing to an evacuation point without verifying its safety. This kind of reaction can leave you trapped in traffic, unable to escape, or stranded in a dangerous area. On the flip side, complacency acts as a set of blinders, keeping you from seeing the urgency. You may be sitting at home, sipping your coffee, thinking, "It'll be fine. This isn't as serious as it looks." But while you wait it out, things outside escalate. Stores start closing, gas stations run dry, and supply routes shut down. When you finally realize the severity, it may be too late. Your options become limited, and you're forced to deal with the crisis unprepared. Hurricane Katrina is a stark example of the danger of complacency. Many people didn't evacuate because they assumed the storm would pass quickly, or that help would arrive in time. As the waters rose, some found themselves stranded on rooftops, waving for helicopters that never came. Tragically, others didn't survive. Complacency is just as dangerous as panic in a major crisis. By waiting too long, you risk becoming a statistic. So, how can you avoid both panic and complacency? The answer lies in controlled urgency. This mindset allows you to stay alert and prepared without losing control. Controlled urgency means having a plan ready so that when a crisis occurs, you know what to do. If you need to evacuate, you've already identified your routes. If you must shelter in place, you have basic supplies on hand, such as food, water, medications, and essentials. Preparing in advance prevents you from making desperate, last-minute decisions when a crisis hits. Mental preparedness is just as important. In a high-stress scenario, you'll see others panic, rush, and even resort to aggression over supplies. If you've rehearsed your actions, you'll be less susceptible to this chaos. When you're mentally prepared, you can make rational decisions while others around you may flounder. Calmness does not mean inaction. React quickly, but with purpose. If you feel panic creeping in, take a breath and ask yourself, "What's my next step?" Then, execute it. Every second counts, and hesitation can leave you vulnerable. When a crisis hits, time is merciless. You can't afford to delay. Having a plan allows you to act with clarity and confidence. In moments of crisis, being prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally could mean the difference between survival and becoming a statistic. This isn't just another point in a list. It's a wake-up call. If you're not prepared, you risk your safety and the safety of those around you. So, remember, don't panic, but don't be complacent. Have a plan, stay calm, and stay ready to act decisively. Your actions in a crisis will determine your outcome, and it's up to you to be prepared. Stay alert, stay safe, and above all, remember, Survival isn't accidental. It's the result of careful preparation, calm actions, and mindful decisions. Number 6. Don't neglect personal safety and defense. Imagine this. A peaceful neighborhood suddenly turns into a landscape of panic and desperation. Emergency services are overwhelmed, and your once friendly neighbor is now eyeing your home as a potential resource. In times of crisis, self-defense goes beyond a sturdy door lock or an old baseball bat. Personal safety in such scenarios requires foresight, preparation, and a bit of hard reality. Those who think it won't happen to me are usually the least prepared when danger finally knocks. Security should start with a layered approach. The first line of defense is to fortify your home. A standard door lock or a deadbolt isn't enough when determined intruders come calling. Reinforced doors, window locks, and shatterproof films are affordable, easy to install, and add an extra barrier that could buy you time. Security bars, motion sensor lights, and outdoor cameras provide further deterrence by showing any would-be intruders that your home isn't an easy target. Homes that look impenetrable are statistically less likely to be targeted by criminals, especially in chaotic situations. Owning a firearm can be a controversial step, but if you're legally able and comfortable with it, getting trained to use one could be invaluable. A firearm is not a magic solution. It's a tool that requires careful handling and respect. Consider investing in a weapon you're comfortable with, and make regular practice at the shooting range a priority. Many trainers also recommend taking courses in firearm safety and basic tactical skills to help you stay calm and collected under pressure. If firearms aren't an option, other tools like pepper spray, stun guns, and tactical flashlights can also provide a critical advantage. But remember, it's not just about having weapons. It's about mindset and preparation. Knowing how to respond effectively in high-stress situations can make a world of difference. Train your reflexes by running drills, and condition yourself to respond instinctively. In life or death situations, hesitation can be fatal. Self-defense courses are widely available and can teach you valuable tactics, including basic disarming techniques and situational awareness skills. Familiarizing yourself with these methods can empower you to act quickly if an intruder does make it inside. Having a plan for every family member is equally important. Your household needs to be a well-prepared unit, ready to respond as one. Sit down with your family and establish a safety protocol. Teach everyone where to gather, where to hide, and how to lock down the house if needed. Older children and teenagers should be trained in basic self-defense too, and adults should know how to handle any available tools in case of an emergency. Consider setting up a safe room, an internal room with solid locks and supplies that can serve as a final point of retreat until the danger passes. Don't overlook safety for your car either. A vehicle can serve as both transportation and shelter in a crisis. Keep essential supplies within reach, such as a flashlight, first aid kit, and small self-defense items. You never know when you might need to exit quickly, or even defend yourself while on the road. Number 5. Don't stay in high-risk zones. It's easy to think that crises only happen in other places, but major disruptions don't exclusively target big cities or critical infrastructures. During nationwide protests, power outages, or natural disasters, places we consider mundane can turn into chaotic environments. High-risk zones aren't limited to downtown areas or government buildings. They include shopping malls, schools, and even suburban grocery stores. When order breaks down, these public spaces often become hotspots for chaos. Imagine you're in a grocery store when looting begins, or your office building is next to a major courthouse or transportation hub during an attack. These aren't hypotheticals. In recent years, places like suburban malls, banks, and gas stations have all seen unexpected chaos, proving that any high-traffic area can become a danger zone. Even areas that seem quiet can attract trouble when people start looking for resources or shelter. Smaller communities often lack experience in managing crisis situations, making them easy targets for individuals who wish to exploit instability. If you live or work near a high-risk area, start thinking strategically about alternative routes. In a crisis, main roads may be blocked, and your usual commute could quickly become impassable. Identify several exit routes in advance, and keep maps on hand in case you need to navigate unfamiliar paths. Avoid relying solely on GPS, as technology can fail when you need it most. One of the most important steps you can take is to have a retreat plan. Identify secondary locations, like friends' or family members' homes outside potential danger zones, where you can stay temporarily. Ensure these places are stocked with basic supplies in case you need to stay longer than expected. If your main residence is near a high-risk area, consider relocating before tensions escalate. Moving away from city centers or potential targets may be inconvenient in the short term, but the peace of mind it provides could be priceless. Preparation doesn't stop with having a second location. Familiarize yourself with every possible exit from your apartment or workplace. For multi-story buildings, know where the emergency exits and stairwells are located. Avoid relying on elevators, as they may become inaccessible or even dangerous in an emergency. In a worst-case scenario, understand how to use fire escapes, break windows, or even access roofs to avoid being trapped. Some people might think, my area is safe, I don't need to worry. But as recent events have shown, any area can quickly turn dangerous. Major disruptions in urban settings can spill over into suburban or rural areas in a matter of hours. Even in a safe area, essential services may become unavailable if surrounding infrastructure is compromised. Grocery stores can be emptied within hours, gas stations can run out of fuel, and hospitals can become overwhelmed. During Hurricane Sandy, residents of New York and New Jersey saw firsthand how quickly access to necessities can vanish. Relocating to a rural area or an isolated neighborhood may be wise if you foresee prolonged unrest. Rural areas tend to be less densely populated, and residents in these regions are often more self-sufficient, with stocked supplies and a greater sense of community preparedness. Remote areas also offer more resources for those who know how to use them, like fresh water sources and land for growing food. In all, staying vigilant, assessing the risk factors in your location, and planning ahead could be the difference between navigating a crisis safely or becoming trapped in the center of it. Moving out of high-risk zones may not be easy, but when it comes to safety, the inconvenience is often worth the security that comes with being proactive. Always remember, when it comes to a crisis, it's better to be a step ahead than left scrambling when the dominoes start to fall. Number 4. Don't rely solely on local news. If your only strategy for staying informed during a crisis is watching local news, you could be setting yourself up for failure. Waiting for an evening broadcast to learn about unfolding events means you may already be too late to act. The reality is that local news, while valuable for general updates, often lags in reporting serious threats due to restrictions. Focus on keeping audiences calm and advertiser interests. Consider this. Local news outlets are usually the last to learn about federal-level threats, and by the time they broadcast something, it's often been sanitized or delayed. Government agencies frequently restrict news coverage, asking media outlets to hold back sensitive details that could spark panic or tip off suspects. Even if you trust your local station, remember, they are limited in what they can share with you. Emergencies demand fast, unfiltered information. In critical situations, real-time data often comes from sources local news won't cover: encrypted messaging apps, independent journalists, and even social media. During the Boston Marathon bombing, for instance, people on the ground tweeted and live-streamed updates as events unfolded, giving real-time insights to those nearby. While social media covered live evacuation routes and safety updates, local news was hours behind, looping old footage and pre-scheduled programming. Many were already fleeing or taking cover based on tweets and independent alerts long before TV news caught up. It's not only about terror threats. Think about natural disasters and accidents like the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, where hazardous material leaked into the environment. Local news didn't break this story until days after, when many residents had already been exposed. Independent journalists, activists, and social media channels, on the other hand, sounded alarms immediately, warning locals about air quality risks and advising them to evacuate. The solution? Expand your information sources. Subscribe to alerts from multiple national and international news agencies, and consider signing up for platforms that provide real-time updates from community watchers and independent reporters. Follow online security forums or local crisis watch groups on apps like Telegram and Twitter. These channels often post live updates that can alert you to nearby risks well before a TV station has a chance to go live. Analyze and cross-reference this information. If several sources confirm something urgent, act quickly rather than waiting for local news. If you're used to relying on local channels, recognize they're just one piece of the puzzle. The current media climate can be restrictive, and delays are built in. Don't wait for a sanitized, delayed version of the truth. Instead, take charge of your own situational awareness. By using diverse sources and staying vigilant, you'll put yourself in a stronger position to respond quickly and avoid potential harm. Number 3. Don't assume emergency services will be available. In a major crisis, relying on emergency services could be a gamble you can't afford to make. During large-scale disasters, whether natural, man-made, or a combination of both, first responders become overwhelmed. With high demand, you could find yourself waiting hours, or even days, for help that may never arrive. Consider the painful reality of Hurricane Katrina, where thousands of people, stranded on rooftops and wading through floodwaters, made desperate calls for assistance. With resources maxed out, many died waiting for a response that never came. During the 2020 civil unrest, emergency services were stretched so thin that police departments had to triage calls, ignoring non-life-threatening incidents altogether. And in the Las Vegas shooting in 2017, ambulances were so overrun that some victims were transported in the backs of pickup trucks because emergency vehicles simply couldn't keep up. In such scenarios, the limited resources available are directed to the most urgent situations, which may leave you without any assistance. This lack of guaranteed help isn't limited to urban areas. Small-town residents sometimes assume their local resources are protected during national emergencies, but mutual aid agreements mean local assets can be redirected to major crises. In a national or state-level disaster, your town's emergency responders may be pulled to assist larger cities, leaving you more isolated than ever. It's a sobering thought, but one that underscores the importance of taking personal responsibility for your emergency needs. Being self-sufficient in a crisis doesn't mean becoming a survivalist. It means preparing for plausible scenarios where immediate help isn't available. Start with a high-quality first aid kit that includes trauma supplies, tourniquets, pressure bandages, and clotting agents, tools essential for handling serious injuries until professional help arrives. Basic first aid knowledge can be life-saving. Simple skills like stopping a bleed or treating a burn could make the difference between life and death for you or a loved one. In addition to first aid, stock up on essential supplies that would be critical if help isn't available. Prescription medications, antibiotics, water purification tablets, and food rations that don't require electricity for storage are good starting points. In the event of a crisis where roads are blocked or hospitals are overrun, you'll be grateful to have these supplies on hand. Beyond medical supplies, consider self-defense options. Law enforcement may be too overwhelmed to respond to every emergency call, and in times of severe crisis, desperate people may become unpredictable. Your peaceful neighbor could turn into someone in dire need, willing to do whatever it takes to secure food, water, or other resources for themselves and their family. Being prepared for self-defense isn't about expecting the worst of others, but about being realistic when order breaks down. And finally, think about long-term resilience. Equip your home with alternative energy sources, battery backups, solar chargers, or generators that could keep critical devices operational if power grids go down. Prepare to secure your property with locks, barriers, and deterrents, especially if emergency responders are scarce. Ultimately, in times of chaos, your ability to protect and support yourself becomes essential. Many people have been caught off guard, waiting for help that never arrived. By building your own preparedness toolkit and acquiring essential skills, you're not just preparing for emergencies, you're setting up a safety net that could protect you and those around you. Number 2, don't ignore credible warnings. At a time when alerts from intelligence agencies are frequent and intense, shrugging them off is a risk no one should take. It might feel easy to dismiss warnings, thinking, "It won't happen here," or "These things are always exaggerated." But ignoring credible alerts from agencies like the FBI, Homeland Security, and even local law enforcement could cost you dearly. They're not issuing these warnings for no reason. These alerts are based on verified intelligence, often pulled from diverse sources and ongoing investigations that span domestic and international threats. Think about the scale of information gathering behind these alerts. When intelligence officers gather actionable warnings, they rely on intercepted communications, encrypted messages on hidden networks, and even personal reports from covert informants willing to risk their lives. These informants and undercover agents are embedded in risky situations to gather information that might save lives. They see firsthand the plans and motivations of groups determined to disrupt public safety and order. With this access, agencies receive highly specific intel on potential targets, timing, and strategies that may unfold near public spaces, transportation hubs, and other areas of high-foot traffic. These alerts aren't just generic advice. They're practical, sometimes urgent, survival strategies based on verified threats. Imagine the horror of a familiar, peaceful neighborhood turned chaotic in a matter of minutes. You could be walking to a favorite cafe or a busy shopping area, only to find yourself in the crossfire of a calculated attack. High-level alerts signify that intelligence agencies have observed alarming, detailed chatter from sources that include the dark web and encrypted channels used by organized groups. They are, in essence, shouting for the public to pay attention. When alerts are issued, agencies don't expect people to conduct their own risk analysis. They're asking for an immediate preventive response. If you hear an advisory to avoid a specific area, treat it with the same gravity as a tornado siren. Just as you wouldn't linger to watch the storm clouds gather, don't question these advisories. Detour, reschedule, cancel, or change plans to avoid areas of concern. Those few steps could mean the difference between safety and danger for you and your loved ones. Right now, you're being given an advantage, foreknowledge that not everyone in the world has access to. In a sense, you're privileged with the ability to know when and where you might be in danger. Don't underestimate the value of this information. By staying informed, alert, and adaptable, you're actively reducing your risk and ensuring that you don't become collateral in the chaos these agencies are fighting to prevent. Number 1. Don't attend high-profile events. Public gatherings, rallies, concerts, parades, and sporting events often stir up excitement and a powerful desire to participate. They can offer the chance to express solidarity, celebrate, or simply enjoy a shared experience with others. However, in today's world, they also carry significant risks. With agencies tracking heightened threat levels, attending high-profile events now could put you directly in harm's way. Think about recent history. The Boston Marathon bombing turned a day of unity and athleticism into a nightmare within seconds. Since then, countless public gatherings have been scrutinized by intelligence groups because of the heightened risks they pose. Today, attending a rally or crowded event carries far more danger than it used to, with some groups seeing these gatherings as prime targets. Some of these groups are not amateurs. They're well-funded, well-organized, and professional enough to slip under the radar and evade security. In fact, they often go to great lengths to gather information about these events in advance. With social media providing real-time updates on gathering locations, timing, and attendance, these groups have more tools than ever. They're tracking the flow of people, learning security patterns, and identifying vulnerabilities. Agencies report that some attackers come armed with blueprints, detailed maps, and even insider tips from people working at the event. This means they know how people typically enter and exit, where the largest groups gather, and where to create maximum damage with the least resistance. To these groups, any large gathering represents an opportunity. You might think of these events as safe due to visible security, but imagine a scenario where attackers create chaos with just a few quick calculated moves. A single vehicle, an explosive device, or even one individual with a firearm can turn a lively event into a scene of panic and tragedy. Such attacks don't need to be coordinated on a grand scale. Sometimes, lone attackers with simple plans cause just as much devastation. Recent years have only shown the increase in violence and volatility at events. Political rallies in particular have become more contentious, with confrontations escalating to physical violence, stabbings, and even attempted assassinations of high-profile figures. For every headline-grabbing incident, there are many foiled attacks that the public never hears about. Some thwarted attempts are so high stakes that intelligence agencies choose not to release details. For every reported attack, there are those that slip quietly under the radar, showing the unpredictable and often escalating dangers at high-profile events. Supporting your cause or simply attending an event for enjoyment is understandable, but right now, there are safer ways to make an impact or participate. Virtual platforms, online activism, and other indirect forms of engagement allow you to be involved while remaining out of harm's way. When agencies like the FBI and Department of Homeland Security suggest avoiding these events, they're not just giving optional advice, they're offering a life-preserving strategy. Staying away from high-profile gatherings isn't an act of cowardice, but one of common sense. If something were to happen, you'd want to be as far from the chaos as possible, ensuring that you and your loved ones are safe. So consider what's at stake. Being caught in a stampede, facing an explosive attack, or finding yourself in the crosshairs of a violent outburst isn't just a theoretical risk. It's a reality that too many have faced in recent years. Don't assume that it won't happen to me, or this place is safe. Just as you wouldn't walk into a storm, don't step into a high-profile event if you don't need to. Make your voice heard from a safe distance, and know that in doing so, you're choosing a path of wisdom and self-preservation. That is all for today, guys. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content.